Reports are suggesting that long-term Town target Jaden Philogene is set to rejoin his former club Aston Villa. But which other wingers could Ipswich look at to bolster their attacking options? Good morning, afternoon or evening, depending on whenever you're watching this. My name is Harvey Bell, an Ipswich Town supporting content creator on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So if you do go on to enjoy today's video, please do subscribe and leave a like on the video down below. Town reportedly are still very confident of signing both Jacob Greaves and Liam Delap, and those could even both be announced by the time that this video is out. But it does look like Jaden Philogene is going to be joining Aston Villa. Villa have supposedly activated the matching rights clause that was put into his contract when he initially signed for Hull from Villa, which basically means that if Hull ever received a deal from him, they had to tell Villa and give Villa the option to match that deal. And if they did match that deal, they would get direct access to negotiate a contract with the player. That's what's happened here. It is a shame because I had got myself quite excited for this transfer, but I do trust Mark Ashton to find a good alternative. And as excited as I do get about these transfer rumours, I would just like to point out that these ones that I'm talking about today are purely just suggestions. I'm not trying to leak anything. These are just my opinions, and I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below. That said, let's look at the first of my options, which is Jeremy Sarmiento. You will remember that he was with us for the second half of last season, having joined on loan from Brighton and Hove Albion. And whilst he didn't make necessarily many starts while he was here, he still had a massive impact and contributed greatly to us eventually winning promotion. We had a last-minute equaliser away at Leicester. Of course, that moment at home to Southampton. He is only 22 years old, which is the same age as Jaden Philogene anyway, and Kieran McKenna has already proven that he can get a tune out of him. It is said that he is still very highly rated at Brighton, and the fact that they had to jump through hoops to sign him, beating the likes of Manchester City and Barcelona to his signature, I don't think it would be an easy one to get over the line, and I would imagine that we'd have to pay quite a significant fee. I did really like his work rate off the bench, and he never seemed to be too put out about the fact that he wasn't starting games. He knows the squad, he knows the fans, he knows the environment, so I do think that we could do a lot worse than looking to re-sign him. Moving on to Keane Lewis Potter. There must be something in the air about ex and current Hull City players, but he was always a player that I really liked. He left Hull for Brentford in 2022, and despite a decent enough first season in the top flight, the second season didn't go to plan and he ended up making only 10 appearances. Albeit, there was an injury towards the back end of the season. In March, he was written off until the end of the campaign, but he hadn't been making many starts before that anyway. Only 3 Premier League goals to date, which doesn't exactly jump out, but he was electric for Hull in the Championship, and I do think that he could provide great competition to Nathan Broadhead. Although I do think Nathan Broadhead is still very capable of being our first choice in that position anyway. Lewis Potter is very direct with his dribbling, and I could just imagine him linking up with Leif Davis, getting to the byline and cutting the ball back in what is very much becoming the Ipswich way of playing. He did initially sign for the Bees for £12 million and is only 23 years old, so I can't imagine that they would be at all desperate to sell him, and I think they'd feel like he's still got a lot to offer there. But it is one of those that if the player's head was turned, a deal could potentially be forced through. He is contracted until 2028 though, so it certainly wouldn't be cheap. But what about Jack Clarke? I have already mentioned this one in a previous video I made about general transfers that I'd like to see Ipswich make. So if you haven't seen that video, do make sure to jump back and have a look at that. But if we are looking at the Championship for some new wingers, why not go to one who up until Christmas last season was the Championship's top goal scorer? He also is only 23 years old, and we know that is the sort of age that Ipswich are looking for. He has done very well at Sunderland. He was doing very well last season up until the second half of the campaign, where I do feel like the whole Sunderland team dropped off anyway. But do I suspect that this is a deal that could actually happen? Well, I don't especially see why not. Sunderland did pay 15 million for him a couple of years back, which is quite an extortionate fee for somebody that at the time was a Premier League academy player. I do think that his fee would have risen with his experience, and I would imagine that it'd cost somewhere around 20 or 25 million, but that is just my guess. Is that a little bit more than Ipswich Town are looking to pay for? Potentially. But we know how good Mark Ashton is at negotiating, so maybe he gets it down a little bit. He is a lot more proven now, and he has scored goals at championship level, so maybe it is that time in his career for him to take the next step up. So there are 3 different wingers that Ipswich could look at if Jaden Philogene does indeed re-sign with Aston Villa. As I said earlier in the video, I do believe Nathan Broadhead is the most technically gifted footballer at the club. I think he's perfectly capable of staying and keeping that place to himself, but a bit of competition never hurt, and it is clearly an area that the club are looking at. Let me know which wingers you'd like to see at Portman Road in the comments, but otherwise that's about it from me. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.